Hello, everybody, and welcome to this mental workout. So we've just been talking about learning new things, learning new skills, applying skills in our everyday life, and becoming better at managing stress as we are experiencing increased levels of stress these days, these months, these years. The last few years been challenging overall for our planet. And no one says it's going to reduce stress in the future as we age, as we get older. Our health requires attention, and our families and work also require our energy. And we're here to learn practical tools on how to lead a more balanced and also love-rich and high energy life. And how can we learn these practical tools and apply into our life? We're talking today about polyvagal theory in practice, and especially when it comes to application for stress, anxiety, and depression. For those of you who already know, polyvagal theory was created by Dr. Stephen Porges and was also applied to therapy quite extensively. Debdana has done a wonderful work with her books, and also you can find many resources online for clinicians. But if you're also interested in your personal use, there's plenty of material. Well, here I'm going to share just a few that I apply with my work as a psychologist with clients, and we run retreats and workshops all around the world. And also I'm a director of Virginia Satir Institute in the UK, and we do a lot of work. And actually, as I'm doing the research currently on the Satir model, what I found out is that there's so much parallel work, exercises, and theory between the Satir model and polyvagal theory. And as I started looking into that, more specifically, how did Satir apply what we now know from the neuroscientific research? And polyvagal theory has provided a lot of depth into the scientific research. So let me share a little bit about first what polyvagal theory is, and just to share the slide so you can see, if you can watch and see this graph. Basically, the vagus, which is the main nerve that travels from the top of our head to the bottom of our sort of spine and then connects to all internal organs. It has kind of an ability as like a motorway to connect through the brain and branches of the nervous system to different organs and receive and send signals. So what happens when we see, let's say, danger on outside? Normally we saw that there's only two kind of forms. Before we thought it would either autonomic nervous system goes into mobilization, which is sympathetic nervous system, or relaxation, parasympathetic nervous system. That was the old kind of dichotomy, either or. So we were either in stress mode or in a relaxed mode. But with polyvagal theory, Dr. Porges looked at actually three branches or three platforms or three ways of our nervous system to be. So there is a green zone, we call it social engagement, where the ventral vagus nerve is activated. It's a rest and digest zone, where we see a lot of intestinal ability to digest. There is a lot of resistance to infection. There's the gut is very active. There's a lot of strong immune response. There's a lot of recuperation and resting, rejuvenation of cells, circulation to non-vital organs happen, especially to the skin. The skin is an important organ to eliminate toxins. So in green zone, the social engagement zone, we see this level of engagement with the skin ability to process and eliminate toxins, but also oxytocin being redistributed. And it's a very important neuromodulator involved in social bonds that allows immobility without fear, an ability to relate and connect. That's very important. So when green zone, which is a parasympathetic nervous system, the ventral vagus nerve activation, we are socially connected. That's why it's all called social engagement. We're calm, we're grounded, we are curious, we see peripheral vision, we see what's around us. Sometimes, when we get into that green zone, we notice things that we haven't noticed before. We're more mindful, we're more present, we're more compassionate, we're just open to new ideas and very, very good at decision making. This is the best zone to connect with the beloved people, with our partners, to make love. This is the best zone to create something artistic. There's just so much here. And this is what we want more and more, to be in the green zone. Our objective for the whole nervous system is to be in rest and digest. It's like in the Olympic athletes, when they participate in the Olympic Games, maybe once every 4 years, it's not really a lot, but the rest of the time they prepare, they rest, they train, they get all the nutrients, they sort of prepare the muscles, they grow the muscles, they prepare. See, we could be the Olympic champions of our life and aim to stay in the social engagement green zone more often. But the reality is that majority of us, we move into a sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight respond very often these days, especially if we live in cities that are full of noise or full of buzz or full of action, where we work a lot, where we have a lot of stimuli or triggers, where we have health issues or parents' health issues, or a lot of stress from relationship or families that we grow up in, when we have possibly trauma and our nervous system has learned to be mobilized. So that is a very different response, where the sympathetic nervous system gets activated and there is a hyper arousal. Okay, so instead of that calm state of the vagus nerve, it goes into boom, let's look for danger. What is happening? How can I react to this? How can I mobilize my system so quickly so I can fight and flight, move, run away, or just disappear, or fight? So how can I run away or fight? What does it mean? It's actually a very good response, and historically evolutionary, that helped us survive and run away from danger. It, of course, brings the blood to our heart, to our also to pump through the heart to our extremities, so we can use our arms and legs, and we start feeling that adrenaline produced, oxygen circulation to vital organs only, and shutting down those organs that are not important for fighting or fleeing. There's a lot of defensive responses. There's a lot of acuteness to perceive environment as a danger, and generalization, almost like, especially in the, if you generalize like the teenagehood or like the toddlerhood, in teenagers, you could show a teenager a surprise face and they may perceive it as an aggressive face. So that is a lot of sympathetic nervous system responding. The dilation of bronchi, I mean, every organ, the pupil size changes, the blood clotting changes, the availability of our juices and fuel, our cell and the immune system changes completely. It goes into war zone, kind of a activation of completely different cells. And if you know, maybe you don't know, but we have two different immune systems in our body. One is innate, one is adaptive. So the adaptive immune system calls on the T cells and the B cells to fight and prepare. It goes within seconds, that the response is immediate. And it's great because it mobilizes us very quickly. But the danger is when it's chronic. Chronic mobilization can bring the adrenal fatigue, but also can tire the whole system, the nervous system, the immune system, every single system in our body. And we just can't fight all the time. So we need to rest. But if a person is going through traumatic experience again and again, or chronic traumatization, or in a very hazardous, very difficult environment, then at some point, the nervous system goes into the red zone. So this was the yellow zone, from green to yellow to red. It's kind of a traffic light. And when we go into the red zone, it's a freeze zone, when the dorsal vagal is activated, and this is hypoarousal, meaning shutting down of the system. There's a lot of dissociation, numbness, depression kind of behavior, and helplessness, thoughts of possible suicidal thoughts, or just disappearance. It's like I do not exist. Shutting down could be even sometimes unconsciousness, right? So like in medical terms, a body can just shut down to go into a conservation of energy, immobility, collapse, preparation for death, the sort of feeling of trappedness. And fascinating that our nervous system here in this zone is parasympathetic, which is it's the same as a green zone, but a very different, right? So in the past, we actually didn't acknowledge that. And that's why the work of trauma, or transgenerational trauma work, is quite a recent phenomenon in therapy. And the abuse that happened in childhood, especially the sexual abuse, the emotional, mental abuse, is now coming to surface, and we start to work with these through different modalities. But now we talk about this freeze, when the association, or the addiction, or all sorts of reaction of the body when our nervous system is shutting down. The sexual responses, or like an inability to orgasm, the immune response, the attunement to human voice or social behavior just decreases in flexibility. The facial expressions, the eye contact, we move away from looking at people in people's eyes, or muscle tone just sort of goes into a different state. The temperature of the body decreases, and there's this whole conservation of metabolic resources. The fuel storage and insulin activity increases. The mobilization behavior with fear and endorphins that help numb and raise the pain threshold increase. It's a very complex dorsal vagal complex, sort of parasympathetic nervous system response. And it can be that, let's say, a child who were in the yellow zone and they had anxiety, irritation, anger, fear, whatever, panic, rage, frustration, worry, concern, would have, maybe they had expressed that, but nobody came to help. And that's when it goes into red zone. It could be also in a partnership. It may not necessarily be in childhood. It could also be in adulthood. It could also be in chronic situations of like during COVID, a lot of the time we saw that people went from the social engagement into the freeze red zone quickly through the fight and flight. They couldn't fly, they couldn't flee, they couldn't fight. They went into the freeze. And here came the disorders for eating disorders, or the addiction, porn addiction, or social media addiction, or disconnection with alcohol, drugs, etc. So all of these is just a little kind of map to know where we are. And this changed throughout our lifetime, of course. It's changing throughout our month of life. It's changed throughout our week of life. Now, noting and noticing where we are on this journey of activation and deactivation of our nervous system can help us utilize the polyvagal theory to our advantage. So let me tell you that there are three organizing principles of the polyvagal theory. There is a hierarchy, neuroception, and co-regulation. Okay, so what's important to know is that in terms of the hierarchy, you've just seen these three zones of the nervous system hierarchy. So we want to get as close to the green zone as possible. And how we can do that? So knowing, for example, the principles of neuroception, that our nervous system is automatically scanning outside, inside, and in between for cues. Is it danger or is it a friend? You know, it's a friendly environment, or is it a dangerous environment? Now, how do we know? Let me stop sharing this slide. How do we know, and how does our nervous system, before even we cognitively become aware of the danger or not? A lot of it comes from the evolutionary wired cues. For example, the tone of voice is very, very important. If the sounds are loud, if the sounds are, let's say, loud and strong, like angry sounds, they send immediately signal to our nervous system to get activated. So how do we relax our voice and make it milder, softer, gentler, maybe lower the voice? And if we start whispering to our children or to our partners, and why, for example, lovebirds and whispering into the ear is so effective communication tools, because they also relax the nervous system. Neuroception happens all the time. So we get these cues from the way how people speak, the way how people look. We get this immediate response in our nervous system if a person looks friendly or not. How do we know? One of many, many cues is the smile. For example, if we activate the smile in a very genuine way, where there are some wrinkles, like you smile with the whole face. Even if you smile, look at yourself in the mirror, you can send positive signals to regulate your nervous system and send it from disconnection through the yellow zone to the green zone, just with the power of a smile. Another one is touch. Touch is very, very important. The way how we touch sends a signal straight away. If it's a firm, abrupt, strong touch, it activates our nervous system and sends us into sympathetic mode. Or if it's a gentle touch, if it's a soft touch, if it's a cuddly touch, it allows the parasympathetic nervous system to get activated. On the tips of our fingers, there are Pacinian corpuscles. These are the tiny cells that get activated and send signals of what kind of touch it is. And we get immediate response. So for example, the Havening technique, I love that. And I teach all my clients who have anxiety or stress issues. So just touching your shoulders and stroking the shoulders and your arms and stroking your face with your fingers and your arms, your palms, stroking your face from top to bottom, sort of from the forehead to your chin, and slowly. So the power is in the soft, slow touch. A lot of it is also incorporated in the sensory motor therapy and somatic experiencing by Dr. Peter Levine. And there are so many techniques, the Hakomi method and the movement. Movement is another one. How do we move and exercise? Movement is brilliant at regulating our nervous system. When we run, when we shake, like animals, when they go through trauma and they run away from a danger, when their nervous system is activated afterwards, they just shake and they sometimes tremor to get that response out so that they can regulate and go into their parasympathetic nervous system. So these are simple ways to regulate. And then finally, co-regulation is a very important principle of polyvagal theory in therapy, is how do we help co-regulate people who are in stress. That's why we say we're born wired to connect. We always connected to some other nervous system, be it our caregiver, if not, if peers. That's why environment is so important. We say, tell me who your 5 friends are, and I'll tell you who you are, because your nervous system will be wired similarly to people you connected. Creating safe connections, choosing role models, choosing people who can help us regulate this. That's why therapy is so important, because when we go through therapy or coaching with somebody who is healthy with their emotional response and they can help regulate our nervous system, it's the best gift we can give to ourselves. If we choose a partner who is a soothing agent, who can co-regulate when we are stressed, and also we can help co-regulate their nervous system when they are under stress. Here comes the emotion-focused therapy by Dr. Sue Johnson, Hold Me Tight. When we hold each other emotionally and physically, we actually help regulate our nervous system. So all these, they're simple things, but very important to know who we are connected to, how we are connected to them, and how can we help our very busy nervous system get that sense of nourishment, that sense of cherished, feeling adored. Little things, what can be a nice soundtrack for you? Some people like this sort of whispering sounds or sounds of nature. The music can be slow, can be meditative, sounds of musical instruments, rhythm. The rhythm. We are all rhythmic beings. How much music do you have in your life? The best way to regulate the vagus nerve, because vagus nerve is very much connected to the throat, is to sing or hum or gurgle. So if you have a singing practice, that's the best way. And when you sing, after singing in a choir or singing in a song, or getting that expressing out with the music and singing in the car, you feel better. Why? Because the nervous system knows when we sing, we open our jaw, we open our head neck sort of ratio goes up, and that all is a signal for the nervous system to relax. Another one is opening palms up, opening fingers, rotating our feet slowly, opening our shoulders, opening our arms, smiling, all these little signs of self-regulation of the nervous system. And training the neuroception, training our brain to, for example, looking into your environment now. If you're in a room, look currently into your room and find 5 objects that make you feel good, that make you feel joyful when you look at them. And you know them. For example, if I look at the flower, it makes me feel connected to nature. Versus if I look at a stack of paper that I need to deal with, or an messy bed or something, it makes me feel anxious. So the way we look and find those objects matters. And I encourage you and every client I work with, when they are suffering from stress and anxiety, to find and look for those positive spots that make us feel good. And surround yourself. The more objects you have around you that actually make you feel good, the better. I actually remove objects that make me feel bad from my environment as much as I can. I change the way how objects look. So I feel good. So everywhere I go, I increase my positivity. I increase the chances for my nervous system to be regulated. And my neuroception trains to pick up those cues that are relaxing. I feel safe. I feel secure. I create contexts that matter, that are purposeful, that are meaningful, that actually help me nourish and help me nurture myself and my nervous system. And if, for example, I drink too much coffee and I feel too agitated, okay, I remove coffee. I drink tea that is non-caffeine or non-caffeine. If certain foods I'm allergic, or maybe I have insensitivities or intolerances, I remove those foods. I try to make my diet so that I nourish my body with exercise that is good for me, that I like. I create little moments of joy so that I can create those moments of kind of creating the buffer around my nervous system and around my nerves. Meditation is fantastic. Mindfulness practice is fantastic for these kind of things. Spiritual practices, rituals that nourish. Plant-based life is great for that matter. So all of these are just different ideas that you can incorporate. I wanted to make it very practical, also informative, and make you curious about learning about your nervous system and helping it regulate. You can teach this to your children. It's very simple. You can just draw that traffic system, yellow social engagement, sort of green social engagement, yellow sympathetic, kind of just ready to shut down, and red. How do we help our children, and how do we help ourselves go to the social engagement? That is the goal for us on everyday basis. And it's okay, some days are really bad, and sometimes we cannot regulate ourselves. The best of us cannot regulate ourselves. I'm a psychologist and I have my red days when I cannot regulate myself, and majority of the time I feel out of my box, out of my control. I feel I want to shut down, sleep, just stay in bed. But then I do a little practice, I sing, or I go for a run, I get in contact with nature, I start doing those body exercises, smiling, havening technique, and then I help myself soothe. If I'm in a rage, if I'm in a yellow zone, if I'm in my fight zone, that I feel somebody is disturbing me or not just respecting my boundaries, then I notice that I use the breathing, or I use my body, I open my shoulders, I slow down my speech, I lower my tonality, I reduce the strength, and I notice my voice, and I use the voice different. And when, for example, I notice I'm getting in a very sharp, fast, loud voice tonality, that's a bulb. Let's regulate. Let's take our time to regulate. And you can teach to your children, or if you work with children or adults, every person can learn this. Simple, practical, effective. I hope that was a good vitamin and workout for your mental space, for your brain, but also for your body. And now you can implement and apply this simple but very powerful theory in practice. So good luck, and let me know how it goes. Connect with me. Take care, and bye-bye.